Hello, I'm Rebecca and today we're making a tea cosy. It's a great project if you're just getting started with sewing. A handmade tea cosy is a brilliant gift or just a cheerful addition to your own kitchen. You'll need 2 fat quarters, one for the outer fabric, one for the inner fabric, and some wadding as well, which is sometimes called batting. You can use any type. You could also use fabric from around the house. Maybe you've got a really nice tea towel that you think would make a great tea cosy. You can download the pattern from my Etsy shop and the link is below in the description. Let's get started. Download your pattern using the link in the description from my Etsy shop. You'll see here that I'm actually trimming off one side of the pattern. That's my paper rotary cutter blade that I'm using there. And I'm doing that so that I can see the registration marks clearly on that cut edge. And now I'm going to line the two up together, as you can see. And I'm going to tape these. There's the obligatory cat hair in the tape, and also even though I was well organised and prepped, I had to rush downstairs and find another roll of tape. So there's the taped up thing. Now I'm going to use the rotary cutter and the ruler to trim the bottom there because it's a nice straight line. And again, paper rotary cutter every time. Now, paper scissors to cut up and around the line so that we're ready to start with our pattern cut out. Here's our fabric. We're using a fat quarter today, and this is a 1/4 meter, which is cut from 1 meter of fabric where the meter has been cut horizontally and vertically to give 4 equal portions. Do watch for directionality. If you try to make a tea cosy out of a fabric with say snowmen, one half of the tea cosy, the snowmen, will be the right way up and the other half they'll be the wrong way up. So fat quarters are not ideal for what we call directional fabric. You'll see that I'm pinning crossways here, not letting the pins stick out on the edge where we're going to be cutting. And here are my fabric scissors starting the cut. Now you'll see they're resting on the table, as I said, and I'm getting a more accurate cut for that. Now, I find it fascinating in class that people often don't realise that you put most of your fingers in the big side and your thumb in the small side with scissors. And also it's easier to cut if the blade is flat on the table, like I'm showing you. Now, here's our fat quarter, and you can see here the cut where we cut the first piece out. So we're going to lay the other pattern piece with the first piece face down on here, and we're going to cut around it again. So here we are, just popping the pins through again. And now we're on to the green lining fabric. You'll see I've just folded that in half. I wanted to show you that you can use a folded fabric. And I'm going to pin the paper pattern on. I've speeded this up so you don't have to watch it in slow motion again. And now we're going to cut with our fabric scissors around the outside. I'm going to spare you watching this because you're getting the idea now, I think. Scissors down on the table. And the last little job with the green fabric is to cut out what I like to call our hanging dangler. That's actually the loop that you can hang your tea cosy up by, or the thing that you can grab a hold of to pull it off of your dad's head on Christmas Day. And we're just going to draw some lines here to mark the ends, and it's going to be 4 inches by 2 inches. The first line was the 2-inch line, and now we're just taking out the 4-inch line as well. With a chalk pencil. I love these chalk pencils. And fabric scissors, again, on the table for accuracy. Get a much sharper cut by having the scissors resting on the table. Yeah, I'm making a meal of that, aren't I? Perfect. One hanging dangler. Now, last bit of cutting for today. Wadding. And I'm using a polyester wadding. You can use polyester, cotton, or you can use heat-proof wadding. I'm using polyester because it's what I had handy. It does actually make quite a nice tea cosy. Right, cut round here again. And here we have it, a hanging dangler, 2 front pieces, 2 lining pieces and 2 wadding, though there's only 1 shown here. We're going to put one of our front pieces lined up on our wadding, and I'm just going to show you here how you can pin them. Now you see it's not too close to the edge. Pinning is a good option. They're cheap, you've probably already got them, but you can also use quick clips, which are readily available on the internet and are quite useful for anything bulky with wadding or bag making as well. Now you'll see that I'm clipping them on and then I'm going to take them off again, and that's because I'm going to go for the third option today, which is to use temporary fabric adhesive spray 505. So fold back half of your panel, spray your adhesive and then smooth over that half that you folded, and repeat for the second side of your panel. Now I have to say, 505 doesn't work well with polyester wadding in my experience. I think the polyester is just very thirsty. So you will see me reverting to clips in a minute. Now, time for the hanging dangler. Fold it in half across the centre, give it a rub with the iron, open it up and fold either side into the centre. Now you'll see I did think about going for it and ironing across there, then realised that was a bad habit to show you, so it was better to show you folding each side and pressing it like a good sewing teacher. There you go. And now we can fold the whole thing in half and iron across the middle. Time for sewing. Stitch very close to the edge down one side. I'm using red thread here as a nice contrast, and then sew the second side, and voila, one hanging dangler. Cut your threads, cut your threads, cut your threads. That's all my students ever hear me say. And there it is. That's ready for the next stage. So there's our main wadding and a piece of wadding and fabric. You'll see I've resorted to clips. Found the centre of the top, lined up that clip there. I'm going to have to replace that clip in that bottom corner that I just robbed. There you go. Right, now take your hanging dangler, fold it in half and align it at the top. Now you'll notice the folded side is facing down and the raw edges are sticking up out of the top of your tea cosy. Adjust this to make sure you've got the right sort of size. Don't forget that there's a ½ inch of that is going to be in the seam allowance, so don't adjust it too short. Now put your second piece on top, face down like that. Pin through all of the layers where that hanging dangler is at the top. And then I've speeded up the clipping because you're kind of getting the idea now, aren't you? I like to do the ends fairly early on in the clipping so that they're nice and lined up. Plenty of clips to make sure it holds. There. Now, this is where my filming went a little bit pear-shaped because sew up and over, forgot to film that, or lost the film, or something went wrong. And also I didn't show you sewing the whole of the green, but you'll see here I'm just finishing off the seam of the lining, and you'll see in a minute when I lay it down that it's actually got a hole in the top. Can you see up the top there? And here's my hand through it. Turn it through so it's the right way out. Give it a smooth around to get it nice and curved, and get your other part of your tea cosy ready. Here we are. Right, that's the inner. Put it inside and you'll see that basically the sides are right sides together. Now line up the seams on one side, open them out like a book, open out the other one like a book, and stick your clip it on top. Now this is where these clips are brilliant. They're really good for bulky things. On the second side, this is where I nearly lost my mind because there was a thread, and as my students will tell you, I don't like threads. So I'm opening out the second side after cutting off the thread and calming down, popping on the clip, and then carrying on clipping all the way around that edge, lining up both the fabric pieces and the wadding as much as possible. Do take the time to get these lined up. This can make it a bit tricky when you get to the next stage if you don't get this right. Now, time for the sleeve arm on the machine. So we're going to get under there and we're going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance and sew all the way around, and I'm going to push those seams open as I go over and remove the clips. Yeah, can you see the shadow? We're about to get a visitor. Forwards and back at the end. Cut the threads, of course. And this is when I thought perhaps you might like to see who'd come to help. This is Oscar. Thanks for your help, Oscar. Now, of course, he's a proper qualified quilt inspector who also sort of sidelines as a tea cosy inspector. So, thanks for your help, Oscar. Yeah, great. It took me a few minutes to persuade him to move. He had a little scritch on his head and off he went, or so I thought. Now, it's time to move along, and we're going to find that hole. We're going to grab hold of that hanging dangler and we're going to pull the very tip of the tea cosy through the hole and pull it through as carefully as we can. And it will come through, I promise it will come through. I actually leave an opening about 2.5, 3 inches. That usually works for me. Now I have to smooth it all out. I often find using a chopstick very handy. The blunt end usually works better for this kind of thing, or a wooden spoon handle. Don't use scissors. I've seen too many people poke holes with scissors, and by the magic of media there it is all ironed and flat, and it's time to sew up the hole. So we're going to sew as close to the edge as we can. We're going to hold our tails, sew forwards and then back 3 stitches. I'm just going to realign it and make sure that it's nice and neat, and then sew across, as I say, as close to the edge as possible. Cut the threads, cut the threads. And now we post all of that lining inside our tea cosy, and we're almost done. But this next part is what makes it professional. This is where amateurs leave their tea cosies and call it good. I like to do a rolled edge here. So I am rolling around to feel the seam allowance on the inside. It's about 1/2 inch because that's what we did. And I'm going to roll it with my fingers and clip it down as I go. So there you can see me rolling and clipping. Reappearance of the quilt inspector, or tea cosy inspector. Now I'm pulling this around. I roll it a little bit more than I might feel like I should, just because it kind of bounces back as you work. I'm really sorry about the cat, but I couldn't face filming this all again, and he was determined to be in this video. Now there's a little pause now while I have a little head scritch. We're having a little face rub, head rub going on here. That's what the pause was for. There. But all good things have to come to an end, Oscar, and it's time for me to do some more sewing. So he's gone. And now we're going to stitch in the ditch, or top stitch. It is really stitching in the ditch, which is where we're stitching between the 2 different fabrics. There's almost a groove there, and we're going to stitch as closely to that as we can. I have made the stitch length longer, so it's probably a 3.5, and I'm carefully, you'll notice I'm actually going quite slowly this time, because I'm carefully keeping in line with that green edge. I have a red thread in, so I really don't want to touch the green with the red if I can help it, because it does give us a much nicer finish if the red stays on the red. And you can see my right hand is kind of rolling it under as I sew. to the beginning, 3 stitches at the end to secure my stitching, and cut my threads, of course. And there she is, one beautifully finished tea cosy. And there you have it, our completed tea cosy. If you've enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe. And if you make a tea cosy, please share it on Instagram at Rebecca Palmer Originals.